So, who needs a bike fit? It might be you. Hey there, bike people. Welcome to this new episode of Cyclecraft TV. I am Brendan Poe, the owner of the Cyclecraft Cycling Center located in Parsippany, New Jersey, and all around the world at cyclecraft.com. Here with me today is Tim Dougherty, the mastermind behind the FitFirst Solutions bike fit methodology and virtualbikefitting.com. He's also the master bike fitter here at Cyclecraft Fit Lab. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Brendan. Great to be here.
So in today's episode, I wanted to bring you all up to date on the subject of bike fit and how you can benefit from getting the right setup on your bicycle. So let me jump right in here, Tim. Who needs a bike fit?
Do you ride a bike? You need a fit. Simply put, if you want to maximize your enjoyment and minimize your risk, and you like riding, it's something you should consider.
So out there in the world, there's a lot of information about bike fitting, but from your perspective, how do you define bike fitting and what does a successful bike fit look like?
Great question. I define bike fit as understanding who the rider is and working within their means through a systematic process of collaborating with the athlete, with what I see and what we can back up through objective data. So a collaborative effort to accomplish goals of comfort, speed, efficiency, safety, or stopping nagging problems is a pretty popular one too. So it's kind of like insurance for your ride.
So talk to me a little bit about your FitFirst process. How is it different than what else is out there?
There's so much out there, so I can't speak for all of that, but I can speak for how I like to go about it, which is to understand the athlete, their patterns of movement, patterns of posture, muscular imbalances. All these things relate to how they will do what they do as they do it. How you pattern yourself through the other 23 hours of each day will impact the 1 hour you are enjoying your bike, or maybe not.
So you're saying someone's entire life is involved in their bike ride, even though they're not riding the bike. Everything that you do all day, every day, impacts how you ride your bike and other athletic pursuits.
Definitely, definitely. We all function slightly different, and we're human, not robotic. Our bikes are very symmetrical, and we may not be. So it's important to understand how we are working in order to move forward with how things should be for each person.
Since I started doing bike fits back in the late 90s, the original bike fit concepts I learned with the Serrata Fit method, pioneered by Mike Sylvester, are still the bedrock of bike fitting. But what have we learned over the years, and how have those things changed the way we're fitting bikes now?
Things have progressed over time, and I think those are great foundational ways to start your process. Some of them are more relevant than others depending on how we're working and moving forward. I prefer to look for stability with our 3 contact points and then how the rest of the human is working within those. So how your feet are working, how your pelvis is working, what's going on with your upper body, or I guess the third part would be your hands, your contact point there. Those 3 points are how you'll attach yourself to your bicycle, and then how everything is connected between them has to fall into play. So I'm not going for what's your hip flexor range of motion, how long is each arm or leg. I'm looking at the overall picture and the quality of your movement.
So that's one thing I've definitely noticed that we're doing differently, is we're paying a lot more attention to movement patterns rather than, back when we started the Serrata, Fit methodology was all about, we looked a little bit at flexibility and static joint angles and things, but we didn't really pay a lot of attention to everyday movement patterns, and I think that might be, it sounds like that's kind of the direction. We've been paying attention to that a lot more because of how much it impacts the way people are riding bikes.
Yes, and to speak to that, I do look at the joint angle data of everyone I'm lucky enough to work with when we're riding, but before we get close to the bike, I'm going to have a pretty good understanding of how you'll be moving based upon the functional movement screening and the other things we'll do before we get rolling, which will lead me there, as opposed to your leg moves this far, your knee moves this far, your arm is this long. So we're going to go through it in a way that makes sense for all of us, and we'll all learn together. You'll probably be able to inform me of things you're feeling. I'll be able to see what's happening with how you're relating your feelings to how your body's actually moving. We'll have a roadmap to move forward from there.
So let's talk about the tools we're using now. So years ago, we started with a crude Serata Fit bike that had levers and things on it to hold it in place. Plumb bobs, goniometers, that sort of thing. Today, our tools have revolutionized our process, specifically using a Fit machine and 3D motion capture that's powered by the EkiBike software. How's those tools impacted your workflow?
I can see things with greater specificity, and we can refine what we're doing through objective data. So as I've mentioned earlier, we're looking for quality of movement. And when you can see left, right, top, bottom, front, back, all sides at once through really high frame rate, like 100 frames a second, we can now understand how they're moving at different efforts, and we can average that information. So this fit is going to work if you're rolling easy, if you're rolling hard, if you're on a trainer, if you're indoors, outdoors. So we need to have the highest quality of movement through all of our cycling experience, and that allows us to see it with really great clarity, and the athlete as well to understand what's happening. So it's a game changer.
So, and for me, the tool that I think has made the most difference is that 3D motion capture system, for doing the measurement and analysis. So, specifically on that, what's the impact on the results being able to use this, this very refined motion capture system?
The impact is coming up with a body blueprint for how that rider is riding their bike. So if you were to come back down the road, we could look back at where you were and then also see where you are if I'm going to work with you again. But it shows the intricacy of movement that I can't pick up with my eye, and that people may have a hard time describing if they're even feeling it, because people are a little different, and you may be able to feel something that I may not be able to feel, and how relevant is that feeling, and what are we trying to relate that feeling to? So that gives us a relationship of what we're feeling to the objective data of your movement, to put it simply.
So that's a lot different than, back in the old days, tape measure and a plumb bob and a goniometer is pretty, it can be pretty wildly inaccurate.
It sure can, and what are we choosing to measure if we're only looking at one small point, and we're usually measuring those things in a static, non-moving way, which means it's not as accurate, and you're not really riding, you're just kind of measuring an angle, so what's the relevance?
Gotcha. And I know that there's a lot of, well, I won't say there's a lot, but there's a pretty good variety of motion capture systems that are available now to, I won't say to everybody, but it's a lot more attainable than it used to be. 15 years ago, a motion capture system was $35,000, $40,000. Now they've come down a little bit enough in price. So I know there are a lot out there. So using the 4-camera capture system and the EkiBike analysis software, why did you choose that specifically?
It's in the future, and I want to work in the current and the future, and a lot of the other products on the market aren't as good as the motion capture that's built into all of us. So they're pulling information from one side of an athlete at a very slow frame rate, which isn't as relevant and takes a lot more time to gather, and basically it's not that great. It's okay.
Gotcha. And I know that I remember going back, I don't know, it was almost 5 years ago, we were at Interbike, and we were looking at all these different systems that are available, and this basis for this software seems to be the one that ultimately settled on. I know you did a lot of research on this, so having this EkiBike software platform, this is not an accident. This is not just something that fell into your lap. This is after a lot of research, and this turned out to be the most effective tool for doing this work.
It sure has, and my relationship with the company has also grown because of it. So it's something I have the pleasure of helping others select, use, educate, and analyze with as well. So I know I'm here at CycleCraft enjoying a product I have a relationship with, but the relationship started because I want the best for everyone I have the chance to work with. And if someone's going to pay money for a service, I need to do my best.
Awesome. So one of the things we should definitely cover is the physical evaluation that we do. This part of the process has changed pretty drastically over the years. From my perspective, our initial, analysis wasn't anything like what we're doing today. How has the process evolved, and why?
How has the process evolved? The process has evolved through doing tens of thousands of fits and understanding more about human movement, seeing what is relevant from me understanding human movement with who I get to work with, and also fellow practitioners around the world that I communicate with frequently. and then our athlete feedback channels as well. So I get to work with more people, I see more, I learn more, and as time has gone on, I've moved more into how people are patterning, as opposed to like, well, this side does that and this side does this, and so forth, because basically it takes a long time for a human to change their strengths and weaknesses, but I believe firmly that one can change their pattern, which will change their posture a little easier. Although there's a lot of ways to go about this, I believe we should be looking for patterns as well as how you're moving off the bike, your proprioception, strength and weaknesses too, range of motion, they're important, but we need to look at a complete holistic picture of what's happening with our athlete before moving forward. So an example of one would be a couple years ago when the world pivoted and such. I started a business, and myself and a team of others started to observe and work at a much higher client rate because our time frame was shorter. And we were seeing things that we saw in person, but because we were working with thousands of people a year versus hundreds, we were gathering a lot more information about how humans move.
So much bigger data set.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So the 2020 and 2021, I had seen more people than I had seen in person in the previous 5 years, which is a pretty big statement considering I'm not slow here at work.
Right.
In doing so, I've learned more ways to help others and to help others feel and see and communicate what's going on from their end to me and what I see to them. Cool. A simple one is the shape of your shoe. You could take your insole out of your shoe and stand on it and look at the shape of your foot and shape of your insole, and it's going to tell you a pretty clear story pretty fast. So,
feet are the foundation of the whole fit process. So, one of the And this is definitely a big point that I wanted to make, is that, from a client's expectation standpoint, what are the things that we can't accomplish with a bike fit? Because people, it's not magic. It's a science-based, experience-based thing where we're watching movement patterns and getting people organized on their bikes to be comfortable and efficient. But there are definitely things that cannot be accomplished with a bike fit, and lest anyone think that it's a magical process that's going to do magical things, I like to make sure everybody understands what we cannot accomplish with a bike fit.
Well, I certainly like to team up and accomplish what most want to accomplish, but I look at three main pillars, which are comfort, efficiency, and performance. And if we aim towards one of those more than the other two, it doesn't quite go so well. So what I'm getting at is we have to find a balance point between those three that work well for the athlete you're working with or I'm working with at that time. And if we're going to look for a position that is pretty comfortable and efficient and performs well, it may not do one of those things much better than the other two. So an example would be if you're a criterium racer and you're like, I need to be as fast as possible and everything else I don't really care about. I understand what you're saying to me, but I still care about those other pillars because I don't think it'll go well unless we consider those three main pillars for starting points.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So I guess I've covered pretty much the things that I want to know, but before we go, is there anything else you want people to know about our bike fitting service?
We're here because we care and we want to help you get the most out of your experience. We have a wonderful team here who is looking to help you accomplish your goals, whether they're specific or general. Fit changes, and it's much like a haircut. You probably want to come back over some time because there could be more here for you, or maybe what you think is something that's not related to what's going on is related to what's going on. It's inexpensive insurance considering what we're trying to insure.
Well, there you have it, folks. I hope this episode was helpful. If it was, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to Cyclecraft TV. And thanks for coming in and chatting with us today, Tim.
It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed chatting with you and everyone else.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Cyclecraft TV. And remember, keep the rubber side down.